All right. Good evening. This is the February 14, 2023 Cottage Grove City Council meeting, which I'm calling to order. The first order of business this evening is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'd please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Will the clerk please do the roll?
Councilmember Kambata.
Here.
Councilmember Dennis.
Here.
Councilmember Thiede.
Here.
Councilmember Olson.
Here.
Mayor Bailey.
Here. Next on our agenda this evening is open forum. This is the opportunity that if anybody that's in the audience that wanted to speak on something that's not on tonight's agenda is welcome to do so. We did have a sign-up sheet out in the entryway, but I didn't see anybody sign up. So in the event that somebody missed that, does anybody want to speak on open forum this evening? All right, seeing none, I will close open forum and I'll move to number 5, which is adoption of the agenda. All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Thiede.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Olson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is 6 is presentations. We do have one this evening. It is a proclamation for Black History Month. And so what I've asked is Councilmember Olson, who just did a council comments on cable talking about Black History Month. I thought it would be fitting for you to do our proclamation this evening.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to my council colleagues. It was a pleasure to be able to do this month's council update through SWCTC to talk a little bit about Black History Month with my friend Sean Brundage, who is a Cottage Grove resident. Many of you may know his wife, Shaletta. Sean is the strong, quiet type behind the scenes, and he was really, really good to visit with this month. As you mentioned, Mayor, this is a proclamation for February 2023 declaring Black History Month in the city of Cottage Grove. And the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the Black community has abundant cultural diversity that contributes to the vibrancy and prosperity of Minnesota and Cottage Grove, Black history is integral to Minnesota history, deeply shaping and impacting the direction of our state and city. And in 1926, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, a Harvard scholar, established the observance of Negro History Week to inspire schools and communities to organize local celebrations and host performances and lectures. The event was first celebrated during a week in February that encompassed the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. And the civil rights movement focused on Americans of all racial and ethnic backgrounds on the subject of contributions of African Americans to our history and culture. The celebration was expanded to a month in 1976. And this month encourages us to reflect on the future and celebrate the many African Americans who have made contributions in the areas of medicine, law, education, politics, business, the arts, and more. And whereas Minnesota is home to many prominent Black trailblazers, including Dr. Robert S. Brown, the first Black doctor from Minnesota, Lena Smith, Minnesota's first Black woman lawyer, Neva Walker, the first Black woman elected to the Minnesota legislature, and whereas the city of Cottage Grove remains committed to acknowledging the generations of African Americans who struggled against adversity, injustice, and discrimination in order to achieve equal rights in American society. And whereas Black History Month calls our attention to the continued need to battle racism and build a society that lives up to its democratic ideals, we must reflect on our collective past, reveal its impact on present conditions, and implement equitable solutions for a more just future. Now, therefore, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottage Grove, County of Washington, State of Minnesota, hereby proclaim the month of February 2023 to be designated as Black History Month, passed this Wednesday, the 15th day of February 2023, and this proclamation will be signed by Myron Bailey, Mayor of the City of Cottage Grove. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. And so what I will need is a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion, Mayor, to proclaim the month of February 2023 to be designated as Black History Month.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Dennis. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilmember Kambata. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Councilmember Olson,
you.
for reading that. All right, next is 7, is our consent agenda. Is there anything council wants to pull on consent this evening? Didn't see anybody mention anything, so I'll look for a motion.
Consent.
All right, we have a motion to approve consent by Councilmember Thiede.
I'll second that motion.
All right, seconded by Councilmember Kambata. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So if you are here for anything that's on tonight's consent calendar, all of those items have been approved. Number 8 is approved disbursements. 8A is to pay the bills.
Motion to pay the bills.
We have a motion by Councilmember Dennis,
Second.
second by Councilmember Olson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 9 is public hearings, there are none this evening. 10 is bid awards, there are none this evening. 11 is our regular agenda, and we do have one item on our regular agenda this evening. A is a proposed childcare facility at 7781 Hardwood Avenue South, site plan review, plan unit development, and a conditional use permit. And Emily Schmitz is going to be here for us.
I am. Good evening,
Thank you.
Mayor and Council. I think this is a little bit of a long-anticipated project before you this evening. O2B Kids is a daycare proposing to construct a brand-new building, as you indicated, on Hardwood Avenue South. And I will say, I think confidently, that this is kind of one of our last vacant parcels on that Hardwood corridor. We've got Pizza Ranch going in kind of just to the south of this site, and then this site is just directly west of the shops at Cottage View. A little bit of recent background on this particular parcel. Funny enough, our aerial image does show an ICUP, or an interim use permit, was approved on this particular parcel at the beginning of the Cottage Grove Apartments construction, or the Appadam project, on the parcel just to the north. They use this site as some staging areas for their construction materials. So this ICUP does exist. However, it's not being utilized or executed at this time. The property owner and the potential user of the site understand completely that it's there, but it's not being utilized, so it won't impact this particular development. Mixed-use zoning district does allow for childcare facilities with the issuance of a conditional use permit. So site plan review, we look at all sorts of details on the site. For this particular instance, about 11,500 square foot building. As I mentioned, a daycare use. They are education-based programs, and I'm actually just gonna check my notes to make sure, but it's infants through age 4. Hours of operation are 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. with drop-off times on the in-between those times. A couple of these items that I have listed, I'll get into just a little bit more detail, but I just wanted to note the sidewalk connection, of course, to the existing trail along Hardwood Avenue. The fencing that they are proposing will align with what we typically look for in our commercial areas. Wrought iron, it's not wrought iron these days, it's aluminum, but a very similar fencing, so that does align. And then the trash enclosure using materials that will match the building, so it should blend quite nicely. Site access was looked at quite detailed as a part of this project, and our engineering team did a wonderful job putting together a sightline or access memo that evaluated the best particular location for the access to this site. Now, on this first image, you see the access is lined up with the existing access across the street. So they looked at the sight lines, and the best way to describe this at this location, if you're driving in your car and you're turning your head to look to see if the traffic is coming, you're really looking out probably your rear passenger window, which from an engineering perspective is quite dangerous. So we looked at these sightlines and said, "God, there's got to be a way to shift." So looking and shifting that access just a little bit further north, those sightlines drastically improve. They aren't perfect, I want to be clear, but they drastically improve as you look out your passenger window because you're not looking so much in a curve, rather more of a straight shot north on Hardwood Avenue. So you're not cranking your head several times one way, back the other to ensure that you're evaluating your entire sightline. So with that being said, that will be the proposed location. I want to make clear the developer will be required to keep those sightlines very clear. We aren't permitting any landscaping, trees of that nature in that sightline to be sure that we have those open and visible at all times. Parking on the site, the applicant is actually proposing several additional stalls above and beyond our minimum required. This gives some flexibility, of course, with pickup, drop-off, things of that nature. They are, however, looking for a little bit of flexibility as it relates to the setback. For those of you who are familiar with this site, it does have a little bit of challenges. There's some elevations, and again, with the access, it limits, of course, the design of the site and having flexibility there. So they're looking for a bit of a reduced setback. And then it's worth mentioning their lighting does in fact meet our minimum standard at no more than 1 foot candle at the property line. On this slide, you can see their landscape plan. Of course, they're limited in the areas that they're able to plant that landscaping, but they have ensured that they keep out of that sightline triangle, while also beautifying the site in the process. As I mentioned, some elevation restraints on the site, but they will be matching up, for lack of a better way to put it. This image here is actually the retaining wall that exists out there today. Thought this was a really good visual. The applicant will be using a material that either matches or closely matches this particular wall, so it won't stick out, for lack of a better way to put it. The wall that will be installed will actually be the top of the wall will be about 3 feet lower than the grade that you see there today at the bottom of the existing retaining wall. And the reason that I describe it that way is it gives the understanding that it is a little bit of a step down, and you're gonna have an area in between where the developer is planning to plant a substantial amount of landscaping to certainly beautify the walls there. So just to give you an idea, understanding the elevation challenges and the need for that retaining wall, that's kind of what that visual will look like on that particular part of the site. And finally, architecture. This applicant worked really hard to ensure that they were meeting our minimum standard for architecture. As you can see, they are proposing 68% Class 1 material, which includes some brick, some stone, of course the glazing, and then some lap siding. But they've really worked hard to ensure that this particular building will be a very good part of this particular commercial area in the community. So with that being said, I will leave the recommendation before you this evening. The applicant is here to answer any questions as well as staff.
All right, thank you, thank you. We'll start with Councilmember Thiede.
So I do have a question relative to that retaining wall, existing retaining wall, and their wall. It's going to come up and it's going to be flush, right? Or is there going to be space between there?
Mayor, Councilmember Thiede, there will be space between the two walls, and that's where that
How much space and
landscaping.
how will it be kept up? Not just
Well, that will
because
be the
weeds?
landscaping on the site, yep. And I made a note. About 10 to 15 feet
Oh,
between those retaining walls.
and so who owns the land between those two walls? Where does the line come? Is it
This applicant will own that land to be
all
responsible
the
for
way
the
up to the
maintenance.
existing retaining wall? And that'll be manicured, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe to piggyback on that for just a second, the only question I had was, since they're going to be putting substantial landscaping, it looks like, up on that wall, and I know it was brought up at the planning commission meeting, is it going to be irrigated or up on the wall? Maybe if the applicant want to come up, but I'm just asking, because I know we normally do it on the main levels, but I was interested if they're going to put a lot of money into this
Yes.
landscaping.
Mayor, council, I'll defer to the applicant.
Thank you.
Just seeing if I have it, our irrigation and, sorry, my name is Dan Harris with 814. We're the developer for this site. Let me see if I have a copy of our irrigation plans. So I do not have a copy of those. I don't know that we have those developed yet, but from an engineering perspective, I don't know if we'll have irrigation up there just because watering on top of a retaining wall can pose an issue with stability there. So it will be very well drained there. You'll have good drainage behind that wall that will outlet to the base of the wall or the toe of the slope there. But I believe that the city does have a landscape warranty that we'll need to fulfill, so.
Perfect.
In that respect, we'll.
Yeah, and that was part of the
way.
reason. I assumed you wouldn't be
Yeah, no.
irrigating it because of that purpose, but my question was then, I'm assuming you'll be working on maybe drought-tolerant landscaping, flowers or whatever that are up there, so that they'll continually look nice, even though they're not gonna have, constant,
Yes.
irrigation.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
And one more question.
Yeah, Councilmember Thiede.
So what's it gonna look like? You're gonna have a retaining wall for the daycare. Mm-hmm. Okay, is it gonna be from the top of that retaining wall, you said that was coming about the bottom of the other retaining wall? Is that gonna be flat across? Is that gonna be filled so that you're not having like a tunnel there?
There will be a slight grade change, so a slope from that the toe of the upper retaining wall to the top of the lower retaining wall. Once again, that's for water and grading, or I guess water shedding off of that in a better way and not just pooling up there. So yes, there will be a slope there, just enough to let water drain off the in between that area.
And I assume you're doing something as you excavate around there to protect the retaining wall, the existing retaining wall.
And that's why we have that 10 to 15 foot gap there between the two. So rule of thumb is however high your retaining wall is how back you need to go. So this retaining wall, I'd have to look at the exact height, but it's not more than 10 feet high. So that's how that will be constructed.
Okay.
I actually prefer it the way you guys are designing it, because I noticed, like, if you look where Goodwill is on 80th Street, I don't think there's enough breaks in there, and the rock and everything slides down the hill, so they have to constantly keep it maintained.
Yeah,
So I do like how you've stair-stepped it. I think that's a great way to do it.
thank you.
Council, yeah. Oh, Councilmember Olson.
Thank you. I'll ask the question, and whoever wants to answer it can answer it, although Ryan, I think it's going to be you. As always, when we have new potential businesses coming to town, new apartment complexes coming to town, et cetera, one of the things we have to take under consideration is what is that going to do to the load on the roadway? And we all know that Hardwood has really seen a dramatic increase in traffic counts that will only be added to by the apartment complexes that are going to come online, and now we've got the new business. So in doing some research on O2B Kids, I can see all the various programs that they offer, et cetera. What I don't know is, what's the capacity?
So this building will situate 222 people total, 195 children, and 27 staff members, and that's at their peak capacity. So if they are operating 100%, that's what the maximum number of people will be allowed.
And I suspect that you anticipate operating at 100% pretty quickly because of the
We
dramatic
would like
need.
to,
Yeah.
business-wise, and just fulfilling that it's a good service for the community.
Yeah, there's always a need for, high-quality childcare, no question about it. So it certainly is something that I think the community will benefit from. What I want to know, though, is how many cars are we talking about day in, day out, moving into the building, moving out of the building? What does that do to our traffic count on Hardwood Avenue? And specifically, Ryan, if you're able to answer this, and maybe you're not, I don't know if we've done any traffic modeling yet. We've talked about a roundabout at the intersection there near US Bank and Culver's and, all of the other businesses there. Is that something that we're going to need to move up in our CIP as a result of the increase in traffic here to make sure that we've got a safe roadway?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So looking at traffic, there's kind of two parts. There's just the roadway in general and that capacity, and also the intersection. So the roadway in general is in a really good position. There's about 8,500 cars a day. As you get closer to 80th Street, about 5,000 cars a day on the north end, closer to this daycare. In Hardwood by the daycare really could handle 11 to 12,000 cars a day, and by 80th Street, upwards of 15,000. So the roadway capacity, very sufficient. We are in the process of doing a warrant analysis for the intersection of Hardwood Court. We are looking at a signal just based on how we could build it and the constructability of that. And what we're doing is we do actually have the trip generation, about 273 cars per day for the daycare based on the use. And what we're doing is we're updating, because we have actual counts, right, for the actual traffic that
Right.
exists. We're plugging in the daycare, Pizza Ranch, the apartments under construction, pending apartments, and other pending developments. We're putting all that into this warrant analysis to kind of see where we stand. We're making some updates and tweaks to it right now, and kind of see where that signal is going to land. The big thing that trips that signal is actually more traffic on Hardwood and coming out of Coles, because Hardwood is the main road. So the more traffic you add to Hardwood, yes, it's harder to get out, but you don't want to make all those folks wait at a red light. You need that additional development and traffic on the side streets, and that's what's really going to trip that signal, not so much adding traffic to Hardwood Avenue itself. But it's something we're watching very closely.
Good, thank you very much for the update. I know how many people travel up and down that road now, and as we're gonna add additional volume, wanna make sure that we're not gonna put ourselves in a position where we regret not taking action and something bad happens.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Council, any other questions, either for staff or for the applicant? He was nice enough to sit back down since nothing? By the way, thank you. Thank you for coming up and answering those couple questions. Perfect. So, council, we do have a resolution for recommendation before us. Who would like to take it?
Okay, I will move that we adopt Resolution 2023-026, approving a site plan review, planned unit development, and conditional use permit for a proposed childcare facility to be located at 7781 Hardwood Avenue South.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Olson. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, second by Councilmember Kambata. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Welcome. Thank you. By the way, when do you think you'll start construction? Later this spring?
Yes, after the snow.
Yeah, there you go. All right, well, welcome to Cottage Grove.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is 12 is council comments or requests. I'll do my normal and start with Councilmember Kambata.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have much to add tonight, so I'll concede my time to the rest of the council.
All right, there we go. So we'll then move on to Councilmember Dennis.
Past my time too.
Oh my goodness, here we go. Councilmember Thiede. He's looking at the list.
Yeah, I'm looking at seeing if there's obviously always a shout out for Strawberry Fest and where things, activity is picking up and getting things planned and we can always use the help. So if you know anybody, if you or you know anybody that would like to be on the committee and so forth, our next meeting is at 6 o'clock at Carboni's on Monday night. So come on by. We'd love to have you help.
And I should just plug, I did notice that Samantha Crabtree, who does your Strawberry Fields Business Expo, said she already has 50 businesses signed up for that. I noticed.
Yeah,
on
it looks
social
like
media.
it's going to be pretty good again. Last year was a fantastic year, fantastic weather, so keeps people coming out. So that's
Absolutely.
good.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Olson.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to just take a minute here to talk a little bit about the incident on Highway 61 that occurred the other day. We had a wrong-way driver on Highway 61 here in Cottage Grove that unfortunately ended up crashing into another family who were driving north on Highway 61. And at least to my knowledge, there were 2 deceased and 2 in the hospital. I don't know if anything has changed since I last read about it. But one of the things that we often forget about when incidents like this occur is the dramatic effect that has on the first responders. Obviously, we mourn for the loss of lives. One of the individuals involved in the crash was a resident here in Cottage Grove, and then there was also, I believe, a family from Prescott, and there was a young lady in the back seat of that vehicle They were heading to Burnsville, and she perished in the crash, and we're very, very sad for that loss of life. But it's also a really dramatic and traumatic incident for first responders to have to respond to. They're people too. They're human, they have emotions, et cetera. And I was gonna ask Deputy Chief Renzel if he's willing to just touch a moment on what we do for the first responders to ensure that, you know, when they come across situations like this, that they have an outlet for their grief and for their pain and for their sorrow. And, you know, we all talk about PTSD and how challenging that is. You know, what are the things that we do to help our folks work through some of the tragic events they have to respond to? Would you mind? Do you have just a moment?
I think we're on. Mayor and council, thank you for the opportunity to just explain kind of how we walk through these incidences. As you said so eloquently, you know, these are very traumatic events for the first responders. We have police, fire, and EMS that all show up, including some of our part-time community service officers that are young men and women that are just starting their careers out, that never really expect to see something that is so traumatic like this. We do a really good job on touching base with all the employees that were at these events, and then we get together and we do a critical incident stress debriefing, which is a private conversation amongst only the people that are there, and that's moderated by people in the mental health profession that are usually associated with other agencies. So we get together, have that opportunity to debrief, talk about putting all the pieces together, because a lot of times you'll be involved with a portion of it, so you'll get a 10% picture. And sometimes in order to heal and look at these events, you want to know the exact, how did it happen, what did you do, what did the next person do next to you, to put the whole puzzle together to really be able to understand what happened and then debrief that incident. And we were able to do that with this incident. All the individuals that were interested in talking about it were able to get together and have that debriefing, which is, it's an important piece, right? Sometimes a lot of it's not knowing. And that's what these debriefs are really important for us as a group of individuals to really put the whole puzzle together and kind of share that experience, but also really talk about it on a human aspect, not just you know, I wear blue polyester, but like you said, I go home to my granddaughter. We all have families and we all see these things. And a lot of times in law enforcement and EMS for that matter, you know, you fill up your bucket with this trauma and you have to have that avenue to be able to tap the bottom of the bucket to let some of that get out. And that's what we do, and I think we do a really good job here in Cottage Grove with our police, fire, and EMS to offer that service. And
Thank
then
you very
we have the
much.
others, so.
Yeah,
thank
that's
you.
a really important element, and it's my understanding that they also have access to resources moving forward, should they need it. They can do that, you know, anonymously or privately, so that, you know, nobody else needs to know about it. And I think it's an important element to making sure that, you know, we have healthy people doing a very, very difficult job. It's not like you just show up to a scene like that and then, you know, you get your next call and you're okay. That's something that you carry with you, maybe even for your entire life. But making sure that they have access to that counseling and support, I think, is critical. I appreciate the time you took to explain that to us, and Mayor, that's it for me today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I have two items real quick. One is, I know Molly from the Parks and Rec Department had reached out to me. She actually did a little calendar reminder for me, just to mention that the Parks and Rec Department has over 100 jobs that they're going to be hiring for, everything from parks, different positions within the parks, at the ice arena. And I guess the only question I was going to ask, and I forgot to catch this before, and whether it's Zach or our administrator, Jennifer, what's the age? Is it 16, 18? 16 and up? Okay. So if anybody's interested in wanting to have like a summer job, or even a temporary or part-time job within the city of Cottage Grove, as you just heard me say, we have over 100 positions available as we head into the summer months. And if you want a little extra income and have some fun in our parks and such, or the ice arena, go onto our city's website and you can apply directly there, and they'll be in touch with you about some opportunities that are out there. So that's one. The second item, and yeah, it's hard to believe I'm going to bring this up, but in the last week, I started making out some phone calls to some of our local businesses regarding the 4th of July fireworks. And at this point, within just a couple calls, I'm pleased to inform the public that what I do is I just ask some of our local businesses to get a decent show. We want 25,000. It used to be 20, but with inflation, obviously, and that kind of stuff. But I'm very pleased to report that I have heard already back from all but one. So once again, 3M, Tennis Sanitation, Renewal by Anderson, and our new business North Point here in Cottage Grove are all donating $5,000 each towards the Cottage Grove 4th of July fireworks this year. So I have one more business that has donated in the past, that they're just getting their final approval. My assumption is they will, and we'll have, once again, an amazing show on the 4th of July. And I should mention, that is run by the Cottage Grove Lions. They are the ones that actually have the picnic and all the fun stuff that goes on the festivities that day. And so again, just want to publicly thank 3M, Tennis Sanitation, Renewal by Anderson, and North Point for their generous donations in supporting the community of Cottage Grove.
Makes a big difference for us. I'll tell you, we have a few $1,000s in our fireworks account, but those donations are what puts us over the top. So thank you for your effort.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's all great for the community. That's why, and I'm glad that that's what they see for it too. So that's cool. All right, those are my two items. Next is a workshop session open to the public. We will be going into the training room, and this workshop, by the way, is once again going over and reviewing our financial management plan that we've been working on as a city, looking out years ahead. And then 14 is workshop, which is closed to the public. We do not have one this evening, so we will not adjourn in here. We will adjourn in the conference room. So I wish everybody a great February, and we'll see you in a few weeks.